The life insurance payout barely covered the cremation and a small memorial lunch. After 38 years of marriage, I found myself alone in our little ranch house in suburban Boise, Idaho, staring at a Social Security check and a state teacher's pension that didn't stretch nearly as far as it used to. I was 62, and for the first time since college, I had to look for work. That's how I ended up in the billing office at St. Luke's Medical Center, pulling 3 evening shifts a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It wasn't exciting work: insurance codes, claim denials, endless phone holds, but it kept the lights on and gave my mind something to do besides missing the sound of David's laugh in the kitchen. The shift ended at 11:15 p.m. For years, the last Valley Regional Transit bus left the hospital loop at 11:30. Then the city council trimmed the budget, and suddenly the last bus was at 10:45. I couldn't afford to clock out early and lose the hours, so I did what a lot of people do these days. I opened the Uber app my son had insisted on installing. That's how I met Miguel. The first time his black Honda CR-V rolled up to the employee entrance, I hesitated. He looked mid-50s, salt and pepper hair, tired eyes behind wire-framed glasses, but the app showed 5 stars and hundreds of rides. It was late October, cold enough to see your breath, and the parking lot lights were dim, so I got in. "Long night?" he asked, voice low and calm. "Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday," I answered, watching the familiar glow of the Broadway Avenue corridor slide past. "How long you've been driving?" "For years," he said. "Lost my warehouse job when Amazon built the new fulfillment center and automated half the lines. This pays the rent." Something in the way he said it, quiet, matter-of-fact, made me really look at him in the rearview mirror. The same defeated but still standing expression I'd been seeing in my bathroom mirror every morning. "I'm sorry," I said. He glanced back, surprised. "Most folks don't say that." "Well, thank you, Miguel, for getting me home safe." He gave the smallest nod. "Laura, right?" I smiled. "Laura Bennett." After that first ride, something shifted. Every shift night, I'd open the app, and every shift night, Miguel's Honda would be the car that accepted the request. At first, I thought it was luck. By the third week, I realized he was waiting, logging in around 11 o'clock, parking near the hospital garage so he'd be first in line when I hit request ride. We settled into a rhythm. I'd climb in, shoulders aching from hunching over spreadsheets, and he'd already have my address loaded. The 12-minute drive to my house on Warm Springs Avenue passed in easy conversation: the weather, the construction on I-84, how Boise was changing too fast for people who'd lived here their whole lives. Little by little, the talk turned personal. He told me his wife had passed from cancer 3 years earlier. No kids, just him and a small apartment off State Street, driving 6 nights a week to keep ahead of the bills. I told him about David, about learning to cook for one, about my son in Seattle who texted every Sunday but never visited. One November night, I started leaving a bigger tip, $5 instead of 2. He tried to wave it off. "You're keeping an old lady from walking home in the dark," I said. "That's worth more than $5. The truth was, those 3 rides had become the brightest part of my week. Miguel never rushed me, never acted like I was just another fare. He listened. When I was quiet, he stayed quiet. When I needed to talk, he was there. In early December, I began bringing him coffee from the cafeteria, black, no sugar, the way he liked it. The first time I handed him the paper cup through the open window, he stared at it like I'd handed him a winning lottery ticket. "You didn't have to," he said softly. "I know, but the night shift makes terrible coffee feel like a favor." After that, coffee became tradition. I'd get in with 2 cups. We'd sip as we drove the quiet streets, and the conversations grew warmer. He told funny stories about passengers: the guy who proposed to his girlfriend in the back seat, the nurse who cried the whole ride after losing a patient. I told him about the little Christmas tree I'd put up alone this year, how it felt silly but also necessary. One Friday in mid-December, everything changed. Miguel picked me up as usual, but his hands were tight on the wheel. He kept glancing at me in the mirror, not the usual friendly flick, but something sharper, worried. "Laura," he said as soon as we pulled away from the curb, "I need to ask you something, and I need the truth." My stomach tightened. "Okay, your neighbor, the one to houses downtown ranch with the lifted blue Ford in the driveway. You know him?" I frowned. "Mark Hensley?" "Not really." We nod hello. "Why?" He didn't answer right away. Instead of turning right toward Warm Springs, he went left. "Miguel, where are we going?" "Somewhere we can talk." "Laura, listen carefully. Fear crawled up my spine. You're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. But you have to hear this. He pulled into the empty lot of the old Albertsons on Fairview, parked under a flickering security light, and turned to face me. Last Saturday night I picked up Mark Hensley. He was hammered, slurring, loud. He was on the phone the whole ride, yelling at someone. I tried to tune it out, but then he said your name, your full address. And he said, the lady at 1427 Warm Springs is going to be trouble. She's asking too many questions. We need to take care of it before she talks to anyone. The air left my lungs. There's more, Miguel said, pulling out his phone. I've picked him up 8 times in the last 6 weeks. Always late, always drunk, always on the phone about the same thing. I started keeping notes, professional habit from when I worked security at the warehouse. He showed me the list, dates, times, fragments of conversation. 2 nights ago I drove past your street on my way home. His truck was parked a block down at 1:40 a.m., lights off, engine idling. Last night I went by again before your shift. He was standing in front of your house, trying the doorknob. It was locked. He looked in the windows, then got back in the truck and waited. I felt the world shrink to the size of the front seat. Why? I whispered. I barely know him. I don't know. But Laura, you can't go home tonight. Not tonight. We sat in silence while my mind raced. Finally, I said, the Holiday Inn on Vista. Take me there. I'll call the police tomorrow. No, Miguel said. We go now. He tried your door tonight. What if he comes back? What if he has a way in? He was right. 25 minutes later we were at the Boise Police Department downtown. A night shift sergeant took the report while a detective listened, expression hardening. Miguel opened his phone and played the audio recordings he'd started making after the second suspicious pickup legal, under Idaho's one-party consent law and the rideshare terms. We listened to Mark Hensley's drunken voice. My address, my schedule, handle it. She's in billing. She'll figure it out. The detective leaned forward. Mrs. Bennett, any idea what he might think you know? Nothing, I said. Then I froze. Wait, the audit. 3 weeks earlier, my supervisor had flagged missing patient files, Medicaid cases, elderly patients, claims that didn't match the paper records. We were quietly auditing the discrepancies. I was part of the team pulling files from storage. The detective's eyes narrowed. Where do you work in the hospital? Billing department, basement level. He made a call. 10 minutes later he had Hensley's employment record. Mark Hensley worked nights in environmental services janitorial. His assigned areas included the basement administrative offices and medical records storage, the pieces locked together like a nightmare puzzle. Healthcare fraud, stolen files, false claims, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, in diverted insurance money, and I was one of the people quietly looking for the missing pieces. The rest moved fast. Search warrants, a protective detail, a hotel room under police watch. I sat on the stiff bed that night, shaking, while officers raided Hensley's house. At 7:12 a.m., the detective called. We found them. Boxes of patient files in his basement. Evidence of over $180,000 in fraudulent claims. He's in custody. You're safe to go home. But safety felt like a lie. Miguel was waiting in the hotel lot when I walked out. No app, no request. He'd just shown up. We drove through Boise in the pale winter dawn, neither of us speaking for miles. How did you know to pay attention? I finally asked. He kept his eyes on the road. My wife, he said after a long pause. Before she got sick, she started noticing things, cars following her to chemo, strange calls. She told me. I said she was imagining it, stressed from treatment. 2 months later, someone broke into our house while she was at the hospital. Stole her jewelry, her medications. She never felt safe again. I failed her. I promised myself I'd never fail to listen again. Tears blurred the passing houses. You saved me, I said. You saved me first, he answered quietly. You treated me like a person, Laura. Coffee conversation. You saw me. So I saw you. We pulled up to my house, 2 doors down, yellow police tape stretched across Hensley's driveway. The blue Ford was gone. Miguel handed me a slip of paper with his real cell number. Anytime, he said. Day or night. I took it. Thank you, Miguel, for everything. He looked at me with wet eyes. Thank you for reminding me there's still good in the world. The investigation took months. Hensley had been skimming files for nearly 3 years, faking procedures, pocketing reimbursements. My name on the audit roster had made me a threat. He'd planned to get inside my house, destroy any notes or copies I might have taken home, and if necessary handle the problem. He pleaded guilty. 12 years, Fedber. Miguel kept driving me to work after that, but now, I sat up front. We talked about David, about his wife, about the little Christmas lights he'd started putting up in his apartment window this year. In March, his sister in Tacoma called. She'd read about the case in the Idaho Statesman. She told him she was sorry for how distant they'd grown after his wife died. She asked if he'd come up for Easter. He did. He met his niece's new baby. They cried, they laughed, they started texting every week. I'm 63 now, still working 3 nights a week, still living in the little ranch house on Warm Springs, but I'm not alone anymore. Miguel and I have dinner together most Sundays, sometimes just the two of us, sometimes with his sister when she visits. They call me Aunt Laura. Last week, a new clerk started in billing. Young, nervous, drowning in codes. I saw the exhaustion in her eyes. So, on her 3rd shift, I brought her coffee black, no sugar, and sat with her on break. "Thank you," she said, voice small. "You have no idea how much I needed this." I smiled. I know exactly what it means, because one night, years ago, I gave a tired driver a cup of coffee and treated him like he mattered. And because he mattered to me, he was watching when it counted. 2 small kindnesses, 1 ride home that never happened, and 2 lives that got a second chance to mean something to someone else. Be kind, friends, not because the universe keeps a ledger. Be kind because the person next to you, the driver, the clerk, the neighbor, the stranger, is carrying a weight you can't see. And sometimes, that small gesture you offer without expecting anything back is the exact thing that saves a life. Maybe even 2.